Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters That podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Join me today. I welcome a special guest. We got Nick from the band Delenda.
What's
How you
going
doing?
on?
Not too bad. And guess I got a little feedback right there. I guess is everything all right?
Yeah, everything's going good. Um, Life's pretty good lately. Just trying to get to the weekend. You know what I mean?
We're one step closer to the weekend, so that's a good thing. So I guess how's the band been recently? So what's new?
Good. We just played at Shamrock Inn in Baltimore with Cognitive and Dysentery this last weekend. It was a really good draw for a smaller hole in the wall venue that Baltimore kind of yields. It was a really cool experience. The guys in Dysentery, super nice dudes. The bass player for Fifth and Autopsy, Blue, actually plays guitar for them, so it was cool playing with them again. That was like a really cool show to kind of end our July on. There's like a birthday show for me and Ricky because our birthdays are so close. So it was awesome to play with them, and the guys were really excited to play. You know, we weren't too thrilled on the venue itself. We played there before, and we just hadn't really vibed with it too much. But to get a bigger package to that show was awesome.
Oh, that's so sweet. You got to play with Fit for an Autopsy, or at least a drummer.
Yeah, and when we played with them in Jersey, uh, I talked with Blue a little bit, and it was really nice to like get to talk to them because I've only seen Fit for an Autopsy live like once or twice in Baltimore, and the guy's just extremely down to earth. So it was cool to like talk with him in Jersey and then see him in Baltimore and kind of say what's up. And it was really cool to play with again, just because they're more of like a slam death metal band, and it was really they've been around forever. So it's cool to see that they're still actively touring. And we've actually played with Cognitive before. We played with them on Mother's Day a few years ago up in Pennsylvania, and those guys were extremely down to earth. It was really nice meeting them as well.
I guess happy birthday to you as well. Did your birthday already pass?
Yeah, it was Sunday, the 28th.
Happy birthday, mate.
Awesome. Thank you.
I guess I should say belated birthday now, so
Yeah.
close enough. All right, that's all cool too. And actually, Fit for an Autopsy, they came out with some new material, right?
Yeah, I believe there was a new single out recently. I got into them a few years ago when actually, no, I found out about them in like 2014 or 13 after Hellbound came out. And I remember seeing them live when they put out Absolute Hope, Absolute Hell, and just was blown away by the sound. They had that really deep new sound to deathcore. It had like that real like high pitch, not high pitch, but like kind of like throat singing sound with the deathcore aspect of things. So that to me was awesome. And then the most recent release before the new one, they put out a song called Warfare, and it's on my playlist, one of my workout playlists. So it's awesome. I love that song.
Getting pumped while listening to metal.
Oh
So,
yeah.
you know, you have a very good one there too. And very rarely do you have the vocalist and the drummer be the same person at once. So, gotta give him huge props to that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. But Nick, I want to welcome you to my podcast right here. And I guess first up, before we jump into the questions, I guess, so which part of the world are you hailing from?
I live right outside of Mount Airy, Maryland, where we base our music out of. I'm in a little town called Monrovia, Green Valley area, but I spent a lot of time in Mount Airy, and that's pretty much where we base Delenda out of.
All right, sounds good. You get to a little bit more on the story and everything else here, just a little bit here too. But so here's how it's going to go. So I sent you the questions. So get to know you more both as the musician, but also as the individual as well here too. So you have time to study?
Absolutely, yep.
All right, sounds good. So the way every story works, you always need a beginning. So I guess let's start at the beginning right there here too. So who are you, and how did you become a musician?
Um, I'm Nick. I just turned 31 Sunday, the 28th. Tell you what, every day that goes by is another new experience for me musically, finding new bands, working with new people. But where it all started, I think I was probably in between 5 and 10 years old. My dad got me really big into the big four: Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth, and even like Exodus. And then as time kind of progressed, I got older. My dad kind of showed me more or less like new metal. I kind of think he eased his way in with the transition of the millennium. He like would show me Linkin Park, bands like Korn, Slipknot, um, and that kind of pushed me into the I guess the subgenre of metalcore and deathcore on my own. But I also had friends in middle school and high school that kind of started me off with like the light dosage of medication, I'll call it, where we had Avenged Sevenfold, Atreyu, Bullet for My Valentine, Story of the Year, and then like Escape the Fate. I listened to those bands, would go and see them live with my friends, through that phase. And then I think as we hit high school and started like, okay, hey, this drug is, if I use this as an analogy, this drug is kind of hold me over. Let's find something else. So I think freshman year, um, one of my good friends to this day, Jeremy, he's with me pretty much every weekend with the band. He's been tremendous help for the band. I mean, he's gone on tour with us. He sold merch for us. He's helped us out. He showed me bands like the Acacia Strain, August Burns Red, Bring Me the Horizon, just bands that kind of it pushed the boundaries of that metalcore sound into almost the deathcore sound. And from that progression, I think junior year and senior year in high school, I kind of gravitated more towards like the punk and hardcore scene. And then from there, I just kind of fell in love with like the hardcore and more like grind sound, kind of like that mix of death metal and hardcore. And from there, I've just kind of just bounced around in the subgenres.
I mean, I compare it to a drug too. So I'm curious what would be the OD or drug.
Until they make something heavier than these bands that I've been digging lately, I couldn't OD on any of this. I'm going to keep feeding myself.
I mean, Maryland's been known to make, well, these two come to mind right here. I don't know about any others, but I know Dying Fetus and Misery Index were two big ones out of Maryland right here too. So
yeah, Misery Index, New Salem, anything off that album, like with that song, that was one of the most phenomenal, fast, interesting riff city songs I've ever listened to. We actually just listened to that on the way to one of our most recent shows, and I was explaining to my drummer how just intense that drumming was, and same with Dying Fetus. I mean, every album they've put out as a three-piece death metal band, I've just been like, wow. And it was nice to like catch, I think, was it Soundstage? It was one of the Baltimore venues I saw them at, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. Just Maryland coming out with some bands and making the scene proud, because where I'm from here, and we're up in Frederick, where like a lot of my friends live. There is not much of a scene in the Western Maryland, but like as you get more towards the metropolitan area, the DC area, the Baltimores, the bigger cities, the scene is very good, and a lot of these bands that claim those cities come out of the woodwork, and they really outshine a lot of bands.
well, it does get a little bit spread out, as some states normally do. I know Maryland's pretty small, but I know Pennsylvania, like you get a whole lot of stuff in around the cities, and it spreads out into like the farmlands and everything else. So I can see why. And
Yeah.
I actually do have a question about that, but that will tie in with COVID here in a little bit here too. But let's go ahead and jump into Delenda. So I guess what's the history behind it? I guess when did you start doing this project?
The guys in Delenda actually, back in the Mount Airy scene, where we had this little fire hall that all the touring bands came through, like Dr. Acula, Attila, Chelsea Grin. This was like 08, 09 back in the day. The rest of the band, so the guitar and bass player and the lead guitar player, all were in a band called A Bloodbath in Boston, which was like a MySpace era deathcore band. And they stopped playing around 2013. And I was in another band with the guitar player Ricky, called Sent by Aries, and they were a metalcore, more like genty metalcore band. As time went on, I got kicked out of that band for running my mouth, which I don't really care. I love those dudes still. Whenever I see them, we all laugh about it and joke. So there's no bad blood. But Ricky, the guitar player for Delenda, and myself, I guess we didn't talk for a while. I ran into him and Nevin, our bass player, in Mount Airy with one of my friends, and I was playing tennis at the time with my friend, and they were playing basketball. And they said, we're starting a new project. We're going to keep it the same kind of theme as Delenda, where it's like a death metal, deathcore band. But we're not really doing anything serious. It's more just like an internet band. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, I just started learning how to do vocals, because all I ever really did was play bass. And I did backup bass, or I'm sorry, I did backup vocals in the band while playing bass in like a hardcore punk band. And I really wanted to go back to my deathcore, death metal, because I was jumping around, like I said, bouncing around in the subgenre. And from there, they were like, well, we'll give you a call if we want to try you out as a vocalist. And I was like, okay, I didn't expect anything. I was like, these guys never heard me do this. Like, they've only seen me play bass. Even when I played bass in the deathcore and metalcore bands, I didn't do vocals. I just played bass. So about 6 months to a year went by. I think this was 2014. They had called me or texted me and said, "Here's the address we practice at. Come on by, and here's like the roughs of the songs." And I didn't really vibe with the lyrics, and I was like my first time being a vocalist, so I was kind of just like, "Hey, I want to, I want to, I want to feel like if I'm doing this, I want it to be my emotion and my anger, and not just like somebody just read a thesaurus and was like, I'm finding the words I like to kind of." Because when the guitar player writes the lyrics, it's like when the guitar player writes the drums, the drummer's like, I can't do it. But so I went on and said, okay, let me try out these lyrics. Let me see how I like this. Let me see if I can just like kind of get the meat of it down and maybe change a couple words if need be. And after the first 2 practices, I was like, I don't really. Is it cool if I like do my own thing with the lyrics? I don't really like these. And needless to say, I never got a call back. So I was like, well, shit. I guess I'm gonna have to find another band because I'm really liking doing vocals. I just didn't have, I guess, the what they were looking for. From what I hear, they tried out another guy. He didn't work out too well, and then they called me back, and then we worked together as a team. I think it was kind of like okay, we'll work with you, but let's try to like meet in the middle. And then from there, the rest is history. We've played shows from 2015, 16 era when we were ready, all the way until now. And even during COVID, which I know you said we'll go over, but towards the end of COVID, we really ramped up our, I guess, the ignition of the engine of Delenda to play more shows.
I would say he's off the pedal there, Jeff Gordon, but it seems like you guys are kind of killing it right now, so that's all cool. And I guess just for the audience sake, can you just list what the current lineup is?
Yeah, so right now it is myself, Nick Tharp on vocals, Ricky Claypool on guitar, Brian Bond on guitar, Nevin Brabham on bass, and Jack Fangmeyer on drums.
That's pretty cool. I guess, did you guys go through any lineup changes recently? Because I know it seems like a metal band's really any sort of group in general, they always seem to have some sort of lineup changes like here and there. Or did you guys manage to stay pretty consistent even through COVID?
So during my first few years, Dan Harris from the band Visceral Disgorge and Putresect, he was our drummer from the start that I got there until COVID. And then during COVID, we got a text from him saying that he was moving and that he just was moving farther away. He already lived probably about 45 minutes to an hour from where we rehearsed. So I was in complete understanding. I mean, he was one of the best death metal drummers I had played with. He had professional gear. He had played out of the country. And then, I mean, one of the best drummers I've ever played with live. And the fact that back then we were more tech death and now we're more like deathcore, hardcore. The fact that right when we transitioned into the deathcore, hardcore side of things versus technical death metal, he really held it down. He recorded the Grim Divinity EP, which is like, obviously, I think that's our most played EP on Spotify because it's been out the longest and it kind of got caught on traction. But yeah, Dan left, and I mean, I was really bummed out because I was just getting to the point of kind of like taking the leadership role and like booking the shows. So I was like, dang it, like this is really like I want to come out of COVID strong. I want to prove that during this time period where everybody was away from each other, that we were able to stay consistent and write and have this ability separated from each other. And then within hours of Dan leaving, I reached out to one of my best friends at the time, who is now our current drummer, my best friend Jack. And I was like, look, he played drums. He was in drumline all through high school. He was drums at University of Maryland. He's just one of my really good friends who I vibed with, and Dan was my really good friend too. I met him in Delenda. We had played plenty of shows together and hung out and got food and stuff. I just have known Jack longer, so it was nice to like reach out to him and say, hey, this is an opportunity I would like for you to know if you would like to jump on. And I know the Delenda guys. You've seen us play live. What do you think? And he said, yeah. He was like, yeah, I'll do it. And he was like, he listened to the Grim Divinity EP that we had out at the time, and he showed up to practice after the restrictions let up, where we were able to come together again. And he played to the band before we gave him a click track. He played everything almost spot on, like within a few weeks. And I was like, wow, this is commitment. Like somebody went and learned 5 of our songs and an intro based off of Spotify or YouTube, wherever he listened to it. And then from there, he was able to identify the drum parts. And there wasn't even really, as a vocalist, I listen to some cues, and I know the guitar players listen for cues to kind of transition into the new riffs and the new parts of the song. He almost had it like spot on, but he played it his own way to where like it was heavy and intricate, but we all knew where the cues were going to be. So it was really crazy that he was able to take a song and give it his own feel, but give it the exact meat of what it was.
That's a gift of one right there. And that's good to say, caught a good fish, as I like to say. So that's pretty cool. And you still stay in touch with Harris? Is he okay?
Yeah, I talked with him at the New Jersey show. We played with Waking the Cadaver. He showed up, and it was good seeing him. And I talked with him for a little bit. And then every time it looks like we have a show in like the Jersey, Delaware area, I've caught him in a few of them just because he lives. From what I know, he lives in that region now. So if we're out there and another band he's friends with is out there, he'll stop in and see us. And it's really cool to catch up with him after years of not seeing him. So when we first got out of COVID, we played mainly the Maryland, PA area, and then we got to Jersey and Philly and stuff out that way, and that's when we ran into him.
That's good. I see you guys are keeping that friendship going as well there too. So, and just real quick before we jump into COVID here, right here too, I guess, where'd you get the name Delenda? Because I think people are going to see the name right here. They're going to say Delenda Smith. So I think they're going to assume it's your name.
No, yeah, Ricky actually came up with it. It's Latin for to permanently remove or delete. And I was like, well, that's a cool name. I'll take it. It's dark, but it's also like, not too. I mean, I guess if you like really look into it and like type it in, I see a lot of bands. Like if I Google ourselves, it says Delenda Est or Delenda Est. There's a bunch of different alterations of the word, but Delenda. That was just something that I guess Ricky had come up with for the name, the transition from A Bloodbath in Boston, which changed for obvious reasons.
I was going to say you can't really go with that name into Boston. So
Yeah.
that's all cool though too. I would say, does he have some sort of hate towards Boston or something? Because I do notice the Washington poster behind you, so I don't know if he's a Boston fan.
No, he I think in like '06 or '07 they came up with the name, and I was like, is it like supposed to be an alliteration? I never really knew what your grievance was with Boston. And then they I think in 2012, which I don't quote me on this, but I think 2012 was the year of the Boston bombing. So which is
I want to say that, or 2011 or 2013. It's in that range, but anyway, go ahead.
So they in 2000, I think it's 2007, they put out their album Man Made Apocalypse, and I was like, wow, this is like crazy. Like there's videos of them playing this in like 2009 or 10 at the fire hall, and I was there in the crowd, long hair, Hawaiian t-shirt on, and I was jumping on people's back to try to get the mic for one of their songs that I liked. So the fact that I'm in a video trying to get the mic for their old band and I'm the vocalist for their new band was always like the running joke, like, hey, there's our future vocalist. He's jumping on people in the crowd to try to get the mic. But I think when Man Made Apocalypse came out, they had a song called 2012 because the whole like scare that the world was going to end in 2012. And if the Boston bombing, I have to look it up after this interview, but after if the Boston bombing was in 2012, that's really interesting. In 2007, they named their band Bloodbath in Boston, wrote a song called 2012, and then had to change their name in that year. That's pretty interesting.
And yeah, I mean, you can't talk about that to be a coincidence. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, really can't. I want to say it's also kind of similar to like some of the songs that got hit because of what happened with 9/11. I know one was like Chop Suey from System of a Down. I guess they took it off because it's the whole thing. A rolling suicide, and then be like, I cry when angels deserve to die, or something like that. So it's a crazy world, to say the least. So that's all good. So I know you kind of touched on the topic of COVID right here. So let's go ahead and jump into that here too. So I know you've been talking about the music here. So I guess if you want to just talk about anything else in terms of music wise, go ahead. But also, how bad did COVID impact you personally and family?
I'm extremely blessed and fortunate that no one got severely ill. I mean, I've had COVID like 3 times, and I think 2 of the times I was sick for a day. But this was more or less like after the restrictions and like a year, maybe a year and a half after the like the opening of everything. So I got sick. I mean, I had COVID a week before one of our headliner shows in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, and I remember being like, I am not going to make it to Saturday. Just like the day and a half that I was miserable, and then unfortunately, I was able to recover and perform, which your lungs and stuff after being sick definitely sucks. You can try to perform vocally, but I did it, and I remember it being like 6 degrees out that night, and I was like, this is the worst because when you're soaking wet with sweat in a hot venue and you walk outside and it's 7 degrees and the wind chill is below zero, and you walk and you're soaking wet and you're getting over being sick, it is the worst feeling when your jeans are stuck to you and they freeze. But I'm fortunate that my family, my girlfriend, and like my close friends all were able to get through this pandemic with little to no, problems. I mean, I know people that did get sick and they were able to recover fully, and we were able to get back together and unite. But personally, I didn't have any issues with any close relatives, family, or friends. I know people that were affected by it, and I feel that it is a deep tragedy that people had, gotten very sick and some elderly family friends had passed away. Um, but yeah, musically, it obviously affected not just us, but the world and the concerts and the people who, use music as an outlet to let out stress in kind of like a therapeutic sense.
I see. It's good to see how doing well they're made there too, man. Actually, I remember getting it. And it was actually, I always joke because it was actually, I went 2.75 of a year without getting it. And then, unfortunately, you go to Nashville and party on Broadway, you can imagine how that goes. That's just family vacation with a family. So tragic to say the least. And actually, I do drums. So I tried hopping on just to see if I could probably sweat it out, to say the least. And I just couldn't do it. I was trying both throwers, no guts, no glory. And I couldn't even get through like half of the song. So I mean, it was just that bad in terms of the fatigue. So,
Yeah.
but all seriousness, good to see you are doing well. They're made, and good to see you in the band are kicking some ass out there. So
Yeah, we as a band, I'm like I said, I'm extremely fortunate that we got through. I mean, I wouldn't say that COVID affected. Maybe it affected Dan, our old drummer, where he needed to, maybe, well, I don't know if his living situation. I don't really know why he moved. I never really asked, but I'm fortunate that we were able to recover another member of the band or recruit another member during his time where he was like, I'm going to leave, and I'm glad in his absence we were able to fill that spot so quickly. So there was a kind of a blessing where we were able to jump back into it. And even Ricky said, I think in one of our other podcasts that we did, that we were like, oh man, we're not going to be a band anymore for a while until we find a drummer. And I was able to kind of pull Jack out of the darkness, and he was like, oh, never mind. A week went by, we're good. I was more worried about it.
you had to play the role of Jesus there at the moment there too, to pull him out of darkness.
Yeah, basically.
So, but yeah, it's been on our podcast, so he's at least used to this already. So that's all good. So it's funny we mentioned about the whole thing in Mechanicsburg because it's almost like that cartoon sort of situation. You just immediately walk outside and you just freeze right in your tracks. It's like frozen solid.
It sucks because like I was like, oh man, I'm just getting over being sick. Like I still have the sniffles, but I just performed like I felt it was a really good set for being somebody who's still getting over being sick with like the lung power and walking outside and that carrying the drums and loading them in and helping everybody get loaded back into their vehicles at like 11:30 midnight. And I was like, dude, the wind hitting you and like feeling that cold sweat. Just I was like, oh man, it just did not feel good. I mean, I'd rather have COVID again than deal with that.
That's at least the lighter version of COVID here too. We don't
For sure.
the extreme. Or, so. Actually, I do remember playing football. I always remember how it was more so the wind chill that always killed me. So I can relate to in terms of the wind.
Yeah.
Always trying to be the main killer, I should say, being the main killer. So, but I did mention earlier about the city of Baltimore, Mount Airy, and I guess any other towns and cities are close by too, since I know Maryland's a small state. But I guess how bad did COVID impact the music scene in and around like Baltimore, Mount Airy, and I guess anywhere else in Maryland?
We had like all the venues that I know shut down, like pretty, just like everything. They all shut down and they had a restriction. And then I think when it opened back up, I didn't really go to any shows per se. Like I didn't go unless I was performing, which I hate to say that, but like I didn't really go to any shows during the reopening of things unless I was performing just due to like work schedule and getting back into the office from being teleworking. Because I was fortunate enough to be able to telework and then work remote and then come back in, kind of like staggered schedule. Um, but with the fluctuating schedule, we were able to get some shows on like Friday and Saturdays, mainly in PA, and then a couple in I think like at 611 in Frederick, Cafe 611. We didn't really play Baltimore too much in the reopening, so I'm not entirely sure how the scene really did in this area. Besides, like I said, Frederick being kind of the lower attendance because of the scene isn't as prominent here. And lately, at that same venue at Cafe 611, I've been seeing bigger shows coming through. I know, like the Last 10 Seconds of Life and more like deathcore acts are coming through there, death metal bands, and they're gaining more traction. So it is really nice to see bigger bands coming through there, and hopefully that'll really bring more people to the scene in Frederick.
As you do know, a friend of mine, his name's Robert Solanco. He's part of his little group. I should say it's a little confusing at first because one of his collaborators is actually all the way in Puerto Rico, but I guess he lives out in the Baltimore area. So shout out to Engulfed in Hate, by the way. So don't know if you ever met him or heard about him. So I recommend you go check him out.
Yeah, I'll check him out after this.
Okay, that's good. And I guess, have you played any venues in Philly? I don't know if you mentioned about that.
Yeah, we played at, I guess it's considered the outskirts of like northwestern Philly. We played in Ardmore, and that was the Nail, very very small venue, like a pool hall table kind of place. But that was a cool place. We played with a band called Knights of Malice, our boys in Nine Dead, and there was a band called Bitterroot that played there that we're really good friends with. And then the other venue in Philly we played at was, wow, I did as part of a run that we did, like a weekender, Century Bar, I think the name was. And they were like, the funniest thing is we, at the end of our set, we usually do, if the crowd is like hyped, we'll do Car Bomb by the Acacia Strain, but we'll slow it down. And on the wall there was like absolutely no covers. Don't care what genre band you're in. Apparently some hip hop artist performed there, and they did a cover of like a collab of a song, and they got sued. So he was like, no covers. I was like, come on, man, no one's gonna know. The song's been out for like 20 years.
I mean, yeah, so I had no idea. I mean, it depends on what song it was, because I think if it's any of those classic rock ones and you just turn it over to like a DJ or R&B or whatever, I could probably see why, but I don't know. It's a little strange. And actually, the song I always liked from the Acacia Strain, for some reason, I always loved Ramirez for some reason.
Dude, that's a great song. I've only seen them live like I think maybe 2 or 3 times. One of them was at Warped Tour. That band is forever going to be embedded in like when I first found them to now, and like the music that they put out and their album art, Vincent Bennett, and the way that he performs in when he was performing with asthma at Warped Tour and like the 100-degree weather Warped Tour during the summer. I was like, dude, this guy's a trooper. Like, and he lost all that weight, and I remember seeing like his journey. He had like a fitness journey, and I remember just like kind of following that on social media. Yeah, he's definitely a big influence of mine. Like going like as far as like the aggression and the live sound.
Vincent Bennett, right?
Vincent Bennett, yeah, from the Acacia Strain.
He's been in a few songs too. I know he was with one song on Aborted, and if it was Your Entitlement Means Nothing.
Two great songs.
So yeah, I can see why. I forget what movie it was at the beginning there too. So I always thought it was like I, Robot at first. I have no idea why. It might have been a different one. It's a little, I guess it's a little movie clip at the beginning right there. The guy's like probably going to a bank. He wants these androids to hear what his father has to say. And if you there, and, well, I'm trying to remember how it goes. If anyone looks away for even a second, oh my God, I wish they were fucking aborted.
Yeah, that kicks in so hard. That whole album, actually, I think my 25th birthday or 26th birthday, my girlfriend got me the Necrotic Manifesto, the shirt with the album art, and I just thought it went stupid hard. I was like, wow, this is like one of the coolest gifts. I think I've worn it once just because I don't want to mess it up. It's like such a beautiful, like grotesque artwork design. I literally just have it in my closet, like kind of like to the side where I'm like, I don't want to wear this.
You gotta put it like in a shrine next or do something what you see at the Hard Rock cafes, like those I'll say box sets. I don't know what they call them or what the general name is for him, but something along those lines, like what you see at the Hard Rock. So
Yeah.
but I would say Cenobites. Cenobites is my favorite song from that album. And I know you mentioned about influences here too. So I guess outside of Vincent Bennett, I guess who else kind of inspired you?
I think what I do for this is like I talk with my drummer about this a lot. Vocally, I look at two things and I break it up into two categories: lyrical intensity and lyrical content, where it's not like the simplicity of lyrics, but also not like too many like bigger words like that only a certain handful of people understand. So I look at vocal like power and I guess I'd say vocal power and intensity, and then lyrical, power and intensity, where you would have somebody like Alex Terrible from Slaughter to Prevail, Phil Bozeman from Whitechapel. Those would be like the forefathers of that like real heavy deathcore sound. And then as like a third place, Vincent Bennett with his aggression and his lyrical aggression, even though sometimes his lyrics are more simple and it's just direct hate. I feel like his vocal power live and his vocal intensity mixed together is like really good. But then as far as like what I enjoy listening to and like listening to lyrical content, and people will, anybody that you meet that knows me will tell you that it's Keith Buckley from Every Time I Die. I love everything he's done, side projects. He's in Many Eyes now. I would say former Every Time I Die frontman Keith Buckley, and then current Many Eyes, and then I think he did that side project, which was that super group with the guys from Anthrax and Fall Out Boy, which is called The Damned Things. And that right there, all three of those projects, his lyrics just, I can't go on a drive to work, to shows, vacation without listening to some sort of Keith Buckley project.
You got Anthrax on Fall Out Boy making the damn things. I had no idea about that. I think it's actually a little bit of an odd mix up too, because of normally Fall Out Boy, they were more like a hard rock. I don't know if they're more of like your mainstream. I don't say hip hop. I think they have like some sort of like heaviness to it, maybe the music here, but I lost interest after I guess the album with Sugar We're Going Down.
Yeah.
Lost interest after that. Though I will admit, I did listen to Thanks for the Memories a good bit. So
They really struck I think right after, yeah, so Thanks for the Memories really was like the last album that I like listened to all the way through, because I think I was growing out of that music. And then I go back now and then and listen to like their first three albums and just say, hey, this is for nostalgia. You know, you're going back and listening. But the cool thing about Fall Out Boy that has a special spot in my heart is I think 3 out of the 4, if not maybe all 4, were either in or like did something collaboration wise with hardcore music, like the underground scene. So Patrick Stump was in a Weekend Nacho song, the grindcore band from Chicago. He was at the end of one of their songs called Jock Power Violence, which is crazy to me. And then Andy and Pete were both in bands that were like more just like hardcore, just underground hardcore, which is crazy to me because when I listen to Fall Out Boy, I'm like I can hear their punk elements in the old stuff, but I also am like I wouldn't picture these guys being in the underground scene.
I mean, hey, need something to keep you busy, so you can see why. So I have to admit, with Vincent Bennett, Phil Bozeman, I guess all the other vocalists you had mentioned earlier, you have to give them credit for actually being able to be consistent, as well as being able to keep even that growling voice too, because you think it does a number on the vocal cords too.
For sure, those guys like live. I mean, obviously, I think Alex Terrible is probably the most powerful vocalist and the most outside of the bull crap that and all the stuff that goes on the internet that you read about, with him. And I try to ignore that and just listen to him vocally to get influence. Because I met him at Summer Slaughter when we played with them in 2016 or 2017 in Baltimore. Nicest dude. You could tell all he really cares about is music and the deathcore, and he was really just a genuine nice guy. I mean, if he has, whatever his background, whatever's going on with all the cancel culture and stuff about him, I'm just like, whatever, dude. I like his. I don't actively listen to Slaughter to Prevail anymore, but if they come on my playlist and I'm like, working out or doing whatever, I'll turn it up. All their old stuff. I haven't really been listening to too much of their new music.
I was trying to remember what the newest one was. I think it was what was it? I don't want to keep saying 1984 because that one was played recently. I do know that. I know I played it on Liquid Metal Station, so sorry about that. Audio, my people. I'm sorry. It's been a long week too. So work's been kind of killer, to be honest. So it's going to come to me afterwards. I'm going to slap myself silly for just remembering it. So I have to admit, in terms of Alex, terrible. You got to give him props for trying to wrestle a tame bear, I guess. I mean, we know it's not a cocaine bear.
That dude, man. I mean, I've seen his training videos. It's cool that he actually just trained. The fact that he trained bare knuckle fight with Mike Perry, the guy that just fought Jake Paul. I saw pictures of him in the gym he trains at in Florida, and he was like standing next to him looking all tough. And you got Alex Terrible just like neck to toe, head to toe tattooed, and then everybody else kind of stand there, and it's like, dude, he's standing with Mike Perry, a former UFC fighter and bare knuckle fight championship guy, and then that guy fights Jake Paul. Like, that's crazy that you're even in the same room as him. That's cool to me.
I don't think I want to get a bar fight with him. I'll tell you that much. So
I want him on my team, if anything.
Yeah, you want to make sure he's on your team whenever the fists start flying. So
sure,
that's pretty cool. But I guess speaking of vocalist wise, how do you try to maintain doing like the vocal growls and everything too? I guess what sort of techniques do you use?
A lot of the stuff lately has been more or less like the deeper mid end of sound. Like, I do try to do like a deeper mid range vocal. I've had people tell me the last few shows, which is really weird. Somebody told me I sounded like Vincent during one of our songs, and then somebody told me I sounded like Jamie Hanks from I Declare War, and then someone told me when we played in Philly that I sounded like Adam from Oceano. I guess it's just whatever the PA system sounds like that day, whenever reverb they put on my voice, because I don't really know what I sound like. When I first started doing vocals, my main influence was like Jamie Hanks from I Declare War, that would make sense, but I think my vocal style has changed pretty substantially. Like, I feel like I've gotten better, obviously, because I've practiced and played more shows and I figured out what works for me. I personally don't really do the higher pitched vocals. I used to when we were like tech dev, but as far as like music now, it's low to mid low, and then like some guttural, like whistle brie kind of sounds like the old Despise Icon stuff.
And I'm kind of the same way here too, even though I just started doing more of like vocal growling this year. And I have to admit, I tried doing like some sort of like high pitched screams. I just couldn't do it. I was always just doing little growls. So
yeah, to keep the voice. I mean, I don't really do anything like to keep my voice in shape. I mean, when we go on these like 4 or 5 day runs, by like day 4, I'm feeling a little rough, but like I'm pretty sure I'm not doing it right. Like, I don't know what right is. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I've heard Phil from Whitechapel say whenever they get done like their 2 or 3 week tours, it takes him about a week to get his voice like back to 100%. And I was like, wow, man, if this guy's saying that, then I can't imagine what he's going through on a day to day basis. But like, my pre-show ritual, and I will probably dive into this later, is like to do iced coffee, like, and I let it get a little warm. As weird as that sounds, like room temperature, it's kind of disgusting, but kind of helps saturate the phlegm and the stuff in the throat. And then when we start, I don't warm up. Like, I don't go out in the van or the car and like listen and warm up or like yawn or do anything to it. I just kind of go up there and wing it, which is really stupid because before you do like an intense workout, you generally stretch or do something with any muscle grouping. So I think I've had one show where it was like 100 degrees in the venue, and I was drinking a fast twitch Gatorade before I switched over to coffee. So this was just like gross fake sugar and caffeine. And during car bomb, I was just kind of finishing it off because I knew I had a long drive home. And right after we finished playing, oh, thank God that song only has 4 words. And I felt like, not like necessarily puke, but like just like maybe like acid reflux. And I just like were taking the drums off stage and I just like spit all over the floor. I was like, oh my God.
they took it like a man. So
Dude, that was probably the grossest, harshest feeling I've ever had in my throat.
I mean, it could have been worse. You could have actually done what Dimebag Darrell did. Should have.
Yeah, that is true.
So I guess in terms of gear, I guess since you're just the vocalist, I guess what do you use? And I guess if you want to list off anything that you guys use specifically, go ahead.
I'm using at practice. I usually use the Shure SM58 microphone. That's pretty much all I've used. I take my own mic with me. occasionally, sometimes when we tour, I'll just throw one in the bag just in case the venue has issues. But as far as like that, I use like some Bose headphones when I record. Um, I know Jack, our drummer, I'm using his drums are at my place now. He uses the Tama drums that he bought for the band when he joined, and I know he uses the SLP snare, the DW 5000 pedals, and then he's got, I'm pretty sure it's all Zildjian K and A customs. And then for the guitars, Randall cab for our Ricky, Mesa cab for Brian, and Ricky's been using the PV 6505 Plus with his pedal board setup. And for the guitars, it's crazy. Brian, our guitar player, actually handcrafted and made both of their 7-string guitars. So Brian is the current owner of Eclipse Custom Guitars. Shout out to him. And he made Ricky and his own guitar for our live set. So every time we play, people were like, "Hey, what manufacturer is that? What is that? Like Agile, Ibanez?" And they're like, "Oh, Ryan's like, oh, I made this." Or Ricky will tell the person that, "Oh, he made it," and they're like, "Oh, that's so awesome!" And like the wood and the finishes are just unlike any other. So it's super cool to have like that DIY and like that the unique sound that nobody else really brings because it's your own build.
That's pretty cool. I guess how long has he been part of this company? Is this like his own entrepreneurial experience, or is this like some sort of big company?
This is his own company. I'm not gonna dabble too much into it just because I don't know like the entirety of it. I think he's only been doing it for maybe 6 months to a year. Or no, it's been at least a year because we played a show last 4th of July, and Ricky was using the guitar that he made, so it's been at least a year. But I think it's just Brian and his little shop that he has up in southern Pennsylvania that he's able to work with and do and basically build. I don't know how if he takes like if it's like his books are closed for however many months. I've never really gotten to ask him how busy he's been with it, but I see that he's made, I think, at least a handful of guitars. I've seen him use 2 guitars that are different live, and I've seen the one that Ricky made, or that he made for Ricky.
I love the entrepreneurial spirit too. So big shout out to Brian, to say the least. And I did forget to ask this too. I guess when you guys are on stage, do you guys have a tendency to jump in the air, or do you do like more of the headbanging style and air wave and everything?
For me, those guys, what I've noticed, obviously Jack's sitting, he's the drummer. But yeah, he's got some energy back there, for what he's doing on the drums. Like when there's the slower parts, or he's like getting people amped. My thing is just to like hype people up. I do a lot of like jumps, like posse jumps, just jump as high as I can when during the breakdowns hit. And then I see that Ricky and Brian they're really back there just headbanging. Because I know that the focus on what they're doing, especially during the leads and the solos, before the breakdowns, they're really just focused. So I'm not expecting them to be like throwing their guitar in the air and anything like that.
I didn't expect them to throw it. I'm just thinking they're doing the whole hair waving and the headbanging and that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
Because I also think it was bands that were also deathcore, or at least had more of the hardcore of like a lot of breakdowns. They were mainly known for like jumping and that whole sorts of stuff. Maybe even, I don't want to call them, not burpees. The ones you do, like you put your hands back ahead and you bring the knees up to the chest and jumping in the air.
Yeah.
So, kind of thinking something like that. But also, I know Slipknot was always big into like doing jumping and doing crazy antics on stage. So I didn't know if it was something along those lines.
Yeah, I think live, like my main thing is like if the venue doesn't have air conditioning, just like one of the last few venues we played, I'm like, all right, y'all ain't getting no circus tricks out of me tonight. I'm gonna be standing here holding on to the PA, the tower monitor, and screaming because like we just played in Delaware, and I was like, bro, this is the hottest I have ever been in my life. Like this is miserable. How do you not have air conditioning in a bar?
Too many people all at once, I guess. So I don't know. But you're all right. It's a little bit of a downer that they don't have the AC on. So
Yeah.
And I guess in terms of creating the songs, for instance, I guess do you guys share responsibility in doing the lyrics? And I guess do you guys always start with lyrics, or do you start with the music first?
It's kind of like kind of like everybody kind of takes in their own responsibility. Like we talk about a new song, Ricky or Brian will send like a MIDI file to each other, and then from there we'll kind of collab on like listening to it via text message, email, whatever, however we get it from each other, and we'll kind of give our own opinion on it about the breakdown or the riff and see what we think about it. Um, and then from there, I personally sit like I can't like force myself to sit down and like, okay, you have to do this. Like you have to write these lyrics. Like the song's almost done, it's almost put together, and you have to go record the roughs. And they're like we do like a rough draft and a final draft, like of like an essay, I would say, in school. And what I do is I'll be driving or sometimes driving without music or just listening to music and tapping my finger, like being playing kicking the kick drum while I'm driving, and like wow that's cool. Like I get influenced by bands, not necessarily copyright, but I get influenced by like certain lyrical styles. Like, oh, that would be cool if like they twisted it this way and it would sound cool this way. And like thinking about how another band would do it. And then what I do is there's like certain Fridays or Saturdays where like I've had a really long day and I'm all amped up and I get the most creativity and the most flow for our music at like between midnight and like 3 a.m. Like, and I just feel like there's something about just laying in my room and letting my mind race and thinking about like a lot of people are like, oh, I can't sleep, I have anxiety, I'm suffering with like this. I feel like you can like if you're able to like well, this is how I take it is I can use that nervous energy or that nervous like I'm afraid of the next day or anxious or whatever it is, and I can use it in like a positive way and like kind of mold creativity out of that like chopping block and be like, okay, hey, this would be a cool idea for a song. If I'm gonna be forced to lay here and be awake and not sleep, I'm gonna use it to my advantage. So that's what I like to do, and that's my writing process. I know the other guys in the band actually like do normal things and like sit down behind the kid or sit down behind the amp and go, "This is the riff," and I have time during the week. For me, it's like, no, I'm doing this at like 2:33 in the morning on my notepad or on my iPhone notes. So
Yeah, I always get those sorts of ideas that pop in your head literally right at night, and even sometimes when it occurs, like in a dream, for instance. And one, I tend not to like to get out of bed because I never normally don't like to look at the clock and see like it's either 2 or 3 in the morning. So I tend to want to go back to bed.
yeah,
Two, I don't know where my iPad has any juice because I don't really use it as much as I probably should. So
yeah.
I kind of see why, but you have to kind of force yourself to do that sort of stuff, let alone write down the ideas. And I guess speaking of your lyrics, I guess so. What do you normally like to delve into? Do you normally like to do personal stuff, or do you try to get a little poetic at times?
A little bit of both. I do personal, not like directly personal, where like if somebody listens to like, oh, that's Nick, but I like to make it run parallel with like personal issues, I guess like personal problems, but like related to like how it would be relatable to another person, so that they can relate to what I know. There's other people that suffer or that have issues that they can all relate to what I put out, and also more or less like the darker side of things in life and like the darker. I mean, it's metal, so you kind of I know there's positive metal bands and positive hardcore bands, but a lot of it comes from just the just like your typical subjects that kind of run alongside the metal genre. You know, like suffering, anger, depression, anxiety, um, feeling trapped, feeling just mental health issues, and just kind of dabbling in all one. I try not to dabble too much into like the basics, like the death and like the murder and like just like the typical like old school death metal where it's just like murder, I hate you kind of thing, but mix it kind of with my own twist on things so that people can relate but not be like, oh wow, it's another band talking about death or murder. You know what I mean?
Or you can go even darker and go back to the old Cannibal Corpse days, talk about necrophilia. How about that?
Yeah, dude, that album, Tomb of the Mutilated, and just every album they put out. I remember I wore a Cannibal Corpse shirt to picture day. I think it was junior year, and everybody was like, "What the hell?"
I mean, I saw a couple too. I think one was the Vile album, I'm gonna say, and I think another one was like their Centuries of Torment, which I guess was their live album, I guess.
Yep.
So I've seen it too. I mean, I've also seen some guys wearing Demu Burger, and one guy was actually wearing a Behemoth shirt. So,
Well,
and that was also the Christians to the Lions. I mean, it was going pretty hard there too. So I mean, he was going hard. I'll tell you that much. He was going pretty hard. So let's see why. I guess in terms of challenges these days, I guess what challenges do you face personally, and I guess what challenges does the band face these days?
I think right now our biggest our biggest challenge is, I mean, I guess I guess I can dive in on my own challenges. Is like whenever we put out a new song, I want as much promotion on it as possible, and I think it's not necessarily a challenge, but more or less like a headache to try to get in communication with people who are like looking for bands to promote. Like I meet a lot of like the smaller Instagram, YouTube pages, and that's kind of how I stumbled upon your page. Was like, oh, cool, somebody who seems like they genuinely care about the music scene in the area. And I saw a couple of the videos that you put out. And I was like, wow, these are awesome. So I want to get in touch and work with you. But as far as like challenges, getting a new song out, getting it, through the process, getting it all done, and then promoting it as much as humanly possible and getting it to as many ears as possible. And then the challenge that I personally faced, that was more of a band thing, but as a personal thing, is the writer's block. The once a song is out and I feel like I've polished it off to how I like it and it gets put out into production and we get it out to the masses, I think once I have to go into writing another song, my goal is to top it lyrically. And I feel like it's hard for me to like, how am I going to master and like write something better than I feel like I just did. I put all this time in. So it's always trying to write something better than your last song is the biggest challenge I face.
For writer's block, I guess, do you try to take anything to kind of help alleviate that in some sort of way? Or you're just kind of hoping that idea pops in your head one night?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll put on a band that I'll find a new band that I haven't really listened to, or like a newer band like I've maybe caught wind of and never like gave them a chance. Listen to them, listen to kind of how the style is, or maybe their tone, and then I'll like, wow, I don't ever want to mimic a band. I don't ever want somebody like you sound like. I mean, it's nice that people kind of say like, hey, you guys sound similar to this band. That's a really big like a really good compliment because there's bands that they usually say are huge, but I really want Delenda to have our own unique sound because I know it's hard in today's music because there's so many bands, but I really just want Delenda to kind of have that sound. But I guess to answer your question, the best thing for me to get rid of writer's block is to either dive deeper into my own mental thing, like and actually sit and kind of like I don't want to say like meditate, but like sit and like focus, like make myself focus, or just to train, like go for a run, kind of get my mind off of the thing. So when I come back to it, it's almost easy because you're not making yourself. There's like it's almost like a double edged sword. Like I can make myself do it, but I don't feel like it comes out as good. But then if I force myself into like going to do like an intense workout, go play hockey, go hit the bag, do whatever I'm gonna do, and then come back to it, it's like the the physical sweat that you broke, you can go in and be like, okay, now I feel like I've gotten all that tension out, and then kind of let it build back up. And as it's building back up, I feel like it gives me this creative flow. Like your blood's pumping, so your body's like firing on all cylinders. So it's almost like you're recovering and you're getting this creative flow on top of recovery. It's a very very weird thing. I don't know why it happens to me, but after hockey, when my adrenaline's pumping, like during the week, and I go to lay down at midnight and get up at 4 for work, I'm laying there and I'm like, dude, this song idea would be sick, and I'll just sit there and like kind of write it out. So it definitely, I don't know what it is about the human body, but it's a crazy thing.
Beauty of music, you tend to get ideas that pop in everywhere. So
Yeah.
anyway, same with inspiration too. I mean, I brought up like saying inspiration comes in weird places. You got to find it. So
Yeah.
see why. I guess also in terms of challenges too. I guess what do you make of AI these days? I guess do you use AI for anything?
I don't. I've jokingly used it to write lyrics. Like went to Chat GPT or whatever that was that I used, and I typed in like write a song about sorrow and like sorrow, anger, feeling trapped, and like darkness, and it wrote me a song in like 30 seconds. And I was like, wow. I like listened to it and I was like, this is very this doesn't feel genuine. And I asked the guys in our band, I was like, would you guys ever use this? Like I can jokingly use it. Maybe we could write a song and just mess with it. But I was like, I just don't feel like it's really useful to me because it doesn't. It's just like it is what it is what it is basically. Like it wrote a song and I'm like, wow, a robot wrote this. There's no feeling.
So you gotta have that feel. Comes right here
From the chest, not the the hard drive, I guess.
I guess what would you call it up here? I guess what you call the brain, the hard drive?
Yeah, for sure.
There, right there. So, and I normally always like to ask a question, but it seems like these days you got to tread carefully because I don't know what's going to happen at this point. Because I think they're always talking about using this and that. I forget what tech companies were going to start using it, or at least trying to enhance it a little bit more here too. So, have to see what happens. So, let's hope we regulate it at some point to a certain degree. So, we'll see what happens. Tread carefully. And I guess first off, what social media are you guys on?
Currently, we are on Facebook, Delenda MD, or just I think if you just search Delenda, it's like one of the first ones that comes up. We are on TikTok, which Ricky's fiance has done a great job in running for us. And then I run the Instagram, which is mainly where I do a lot of my connections with promoters. They get our email from our bio. We work through there. A lot of people reach out to us via Instagram, which seems to be our hottest, I guess, social interactions. And then we do have a Twitter. I don't think it's been used probably in a year or two, or sorry, X as I will call it. And then YouTube is just for like live, exactly. And then YouTube is just for like where we post like clips and snippets of our live shows, like the ones that we feel like we played the best at, or we have like the best quality sound recordings. We use YouTube.
I had to laugh right there because I just found this right now too. Instead of X, why didn't they just put the letter Y in?
Yeah, one would think that's a good idea. I mean, I used to use Twitter like back in high school for my own personal use, and now I'm just like, nah, it's not going to work for me.
Kind of a little too toxic nowadays. I mean, I guess there's a little bit of toxicity here and there, but if any really social media, depending on like where you're digging at. So
Yeah,
I
actually got one of the promoters talk to me at the show in Baltimore, and he was like, "Do you guys have any personal socials, or do you guys just use the band?" And I was like, "I just run the Instagram. You know, so and so runs the Facebook." And they were like, "Oh, dude, I didn't know that none of you guys had socials. That's crazy." And I was like, "Yeah, you know, I think it's for the best. A lot of people, you know, if you stay away from it, it definitely helps you. I think your own mental state, and you see, I don't know. Just after high school, I got rid of everything socially until I jumped into Delenda, and then I kind of just ran the Instagram, which I feel like I've been doing a pretty good job at it. But I know none of the guys have socials as far as I know.
know I kind of mentioned about the negativity earlier, but this one kind of ticked me off a little bit here too. They were talking about how the Gojira, that whole debacle at the Olympics opening ceremony. First off, they were saying Gojira's like satanic, and then they were also freaking out about this whole mockery of the Last Supper with like all these drag queens and everything too. So I guess first of all, what'd you make of Gojira? And I guess if you want to talk about the opening ceremony for the Olympics, go ahead.
Yeah, it was cool having them perform. I not really the biggest. I mean they're a talented band. I'm not really super big into them, but I'm happy that they were able to perform on a stage that big. Which any band, no matter where you are, if you perform. But as far as like performing on the biggest stage and the way that you can perform in like national television, have people that are, I'll call them normal people that don't listen to metal, they it was cool to see a band that really, you know, I mean, Gojira has played huge like arenas and stuff. So the fact that they were able to jump on the Olympics thing of the stage was awesome to see that. And like I said, I have more props to any band, even if I don't like them. Any metal band that can step out in the limelight, like that is awesome. And you're gonna have the normal people who say, "Oh, it's satanic. Oh, it's evil." I mean, I deal with that on a daily basis. But for people at my job, for people exactly, and people who I meet, you know, when I first showed my grandparents this music or my family friends, they were like, "Oh, dude, what is this? Like, who's singing? It's terrible." It's like, "Oh man."
I'd be like, I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah, it is pretty. I actually showed my old general manager at my job before he left Delenda back before we switched drummers when we had like more tech death stuff. And he would come in and he was like, "Oh, I'm a huge Godsmack fan. I'm a huge, you know, rock fan, like hard rock, like Slipknot." And he was like, "Let me hear you guys' band." And he came up to me in the warehouse and he goes, "Dude, whoever," he's like, you guys are heavy, man, but whoever that singer is, he's god awful." Because he thought I played guitar. And I was like, he's like, "Who's your singer?" And I was like, "Me." He's like, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry." Like he was so apologetic about saying it was terrible. I'm like, "Dude, that's like the nicest thing somebody could say about me."
Giving points for being honest. I mean, it's a hard thing to come by these days. So,
Yeah, for sure.
oh man, I honestly, I probably couldn't help myself from laughing if I was listening in on that conversation. So, yeah, but I can see why there too. And actually, I remember seeing Gojira. It was was with Deftones, and there was another band called Vows, which was like the opener. Gojira was the middle act, and then Deftones was the headliner. I would personally say Gojira did a lot better than Deftones.
Really?
I will honestly say that. I mean, I remember having a blast, and I got some of the videos from that. It was Peterson Events Center because I'm up in the Pittsburgh area, and that was actually where I saw them right there, and they kicked some major ass. So go check it out on my YouTube channel. I got some live footage of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, they live. I've seen live videos of them, and I'll be honest. Like, I'm not the biggest. Like I said in the beginning, I'm not like super big into them. When I first heard them, I was like, wow, this is unique and definitely different. Like I heard Flying Whales and a couple other songs, and I was like, wow, this is it's just different. And I feel like I didn't give them as much of a chance as I should. So I'll definitely check that video out on your channel, and then hopefully dive back in and listen to some of their stuff.
Thank you. So, all right. But I was kind of leading into this question. Sorry, we got a little off topic. But in terms of advice, what sort of advice would you give to musicians on social media and in your neck of the woods?
Oh, you said in terms of social media?
Oh, yeah. I guess both social media and your neck of the woods. Sorry. I'm probably using my words wrong. So
No, you're good. You're good. I would say advice is just like keep grinding, keep working on what you love. Don't write music that you think is going to make you money or make you popular. Just always do what you love. Even if somebody hates on it, somebody says it sucks, you're bad, you're not good. Just do what you love. Go on and promote yourself. Make your band just go out and have fun. Like if you like doing it and you like the music you play, do it. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it. Like whether it be rap, whether it be underground, like hip hop, SoundCloud rap, death metal, hardcore, punk, rock. You're playing at dive bars on the weekends, making a little bit of change, playing covers, whatever. We've all been there. We've all played. We all grew on certain genres. We all kind of molded ourselves after people that we love musically, and just do what you love and don't change because somebody hands you, money or fame or whatever it is. Just like always do what you love, like, and make music that you enjoy. That's the advice I can give to any musician who's starting off or anybody who's in the game now that's thinking about changing their sound because they don't like the crowds they're getting or they don't like. Just keep grinding at it because eventually you'll find that niche and you'll get in there.
yeah, I can see. Actually, it was kind of funny when you mentioned that earlier because I was thinking like a Guitar Hero 3, there was like a little bit of a storyline that was happening like in between each set that you were doing. So it was almost Lau, who was the devil in disguise, just have these guys sign the contract, and at the bottom where the signature was "Your soul is mine." So,
dude, the OG Guitar Hero games, Rock Band. I remember being a kid and getting both of those and being like ecstatic when I got to like Raining Blood and one at the end. I was like, dude, this is so great.
I was like, could you do them on expert? Because I think I drew the line after hard.
Yeah, it was. I was such a nerd about that. I would play that game religiously, and I got to the only song I couldn't beat on any game on expert was obviously Through the Fire and the Flames. I just never could do it.
I mean, yeah, you got all those hammer-ons in the beginning.
Oh, dude, that was like the revolution. That was like the first. I mean, that song might be harder to me than playing like Dark Souls or any of those Souls games I used to play.
I mean, I was Dark Souls guys too, and I would say I stuck with Parry, and I would tell you that much. So trying to do that and trying to pace Through the Fire and Flames, I think is like the hardest things you can do
For
on
sure.
video games. So, all right, fair enough. All right, so Nick, we briefed for the questions here pretty good. So here, let's jump to the phone ones. Ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. So start here with the first one. So I guess what is currently your favorite food?
Oh man, I've been eating a lot lately. I would say filet mignon is probably what I'm gonna cook on the grill after this. Definitely filet mignon or any type of, I don't usually care where, but buffalo wings. So steaks number one, wings are number two. Gotta love that meat. So that's I would say that's probably my go-to. Is I eat steak probably 5-6 nights a week usually.
I think I saw like one of those TV series. It's one of those 911 ones, and this one was based in Texas. These folks were actually doing a steak eating contest, and I think after a little while, I think the back end of the woman's butthole, the stage just closed up for some reason. Like she couldn't really do anything. I mean, that's just lack of a better term. I'm sorry. So,
Dude, that's hilarious.
but you know what? I always feel bad though too. But now it's kind of made me a little scared of like eating like any of those like real big steaks that are anywhere between like 8 and upwards. So
Dude, I've probably eaten. I don't even know how much I spend a week on steaks, but I mean, I'm looking at two filet mignon or one ribeye with like an avocado or just some sort of like side that I usually do with it. But that's like my dinner, the staple of my dinner, especially after a training session. I just love any type of red meat, grass fed, red meat burgers. I just anything red meat is usually like it's either grass fed burgers or steak, and that's like the staple. So if I had to choose, yeah, I guess the number one food would be steaks. I guess that's the direct answer.
I would say avoid Gordon Ramsay's. He charged like $80 to $90 just for filet. So
That's crazy.
yeah, that was a hole in the wallet. So, but for our next question right here, I guess, what would you say is currently your favorite movie?
Currently, favorite movie. I'm a big horror fan, and I'm also a big fighting movie fan. So, um, probably the Scream movies. Probably the first two or three. I would say that like as a kid or like in high school, I really got a chance to watch them, and I thought they were pretty cool. Um, and even like the old horror films like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, those were all really kind of like the revolutionary starting that horror thing. Even back as like 1960, like Alfred Hitchcock with like Psycho. Um, but no, I'd probably say as far as like horror movies, Scream's always one I could put on and watch all the way through. And then there's fighting movies. It's either Southpaw or I guess like Rocky Creed movies. Those are really good.
I was not too far from Philly, so I always picture you just running down the streets doing the Sylvester Stallone
In a sweatsuit.
sweatsuit, everything too, and get on top where the Liberty Bell is.
Yeah. If I lived in Philly, I would definitely do that. But I don't. I probably would only go to Philly for shows. But I've been there a few times, just stopping in and visiting, and it's pretty. I mean, I think the scene there is pretty good. But as far as going there, I don't go there too often unless, like I said, we're playing shows.
I think there's always a good number of people who are doing that sort of running. So I think people are thinking there's a marathon coming through.
It's iconic. Yep.
Yeah. See what? And were you real big into Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Saw?
Yeah. Saw. I watched the first five before I got out of high school. I think that was like the last one I saw was five, and then I didn't watch anything after five because I was like, it's the same theme. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I did like one or two of the remakes, and the originals were obviously like really, really good. I liked the older ones, and then like the one or two that they came out with in like the new millennium.
I know a mortician was real big into using Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that Bell group out in New York. For the next question right here, and I think this is what you've been harping on earlier with the coffee, but I guess what would you say is your favorite alcoholic drink and non-alcoholic drink?
Um, I guess I'll start with black coffee from either Starbucks or Dunkin' is my go-to non-alcoholic. Along with if I'm feeling like a gamer, I'm feeling hard and playing any video games, I'm definitely diving into some Mountain Dew Baja Blast, and that's like my cheat drink as far as sugary beverages. Um, and then for alcoholic, I've never had alcohol in my life. I've been straight edge for 31 years. I've never touched alcohol, weed, or cigarettes, pills, anything like that. So I've been fortunate to be, blessed with not having any chemicals. Or I'm not saying anything negative to people that do drink or do indulge in those things, but yeah, I've never had alcohol. So
Gotta learn to drink responsibly. That's what people got to do with it. So
yep,
we say no pills. You don't take any when you have like a headache or anything like that.
I gotta be like debilitatingly like dead in bed or like migraine status, which it doesn't happen very often because I drink a lot of water. But I noticed that within the last few years, I've probably only taken Advil maybe like twice, three times.
I'd say, well, you are indeed a trooper because anytime I start feeling it too, number one, I always think it's one of those stomach ones where you have to vomit out your contents in order to make the headache go away. So there's that one, or it's the one that just goes away after you take the pill. So
For sure. Yep.
yeah. You are indeed a trooper. So congratulations on staying sober there, mate.
Thank you.
And for the last fun questions, I guess, what would you say is currently your favorite song, both in the mainstream world, and I guess if you know any indie bands, go ahead.
I guess as far as like the underground hardcore and like the underground like scene that I really follow, Mirrors of My Damnation by Cell and Self Preservation by No Cure, Birmingham, Alabama straight edge band. Two of the bands I've been really on rotation lately. Sells more like death metal, and then No Cure is like that straight edge hardcore. And they're both bands are just phenomenally heavy. And I guess as far as like mainstream, I do listen to like Metallica. They were like one of my biggest influences. Like I said in the beginning, I guess if they're more like mainstream rock, I would say like Metallica songs, anything off like Master Puppets or Injustice for All. But like if I have to step even further into the limelight and like the pop and stuff like that, I do listen to like a few like newer hip hop artists just to kind of stay relevant with the times. And like I have friends that are really big into hip hop, so I do dabble in that a little bit, but I don't really have anything like too poppy or too hip hop pop where I can tell you the name of the song and the artist without hearing it on the radio and kind of snapping and kind of nodding to it.
Actually, not to get off topic, but were some of the guys from Between the Buried and Me? I don't know if you listened to that group. Did they say some of them were straight edges too?
I listened to their first album and then never really followed through with it. A lot of my bandmates have seen them live several times. My drummer and bass player, huge BT Bam fans. They would probably know better than I would, but yeah, no, I've never seen them live, and like I said, I didn't listen to anything after their first album.
I would say Colors would definitely sold me, so I feel like they would definitely sell you too. So
for sure.
I would say Alaska was definitely a little bit more death metal-y, to say the least, too. Some little nice quiet parts like here and there too. So
Alaska had a really good feel. I feel like Alaska was like one of the ones that when I listened to it, I was like, wow, this is kind of like in that realm of bands I'm just getting into at that age. But I was like, yeah, I can't like consistently listen to this. Like if it comes on, I'll know the song. You're like, oh, I know that. That's a good album. Like they're a talented band, but I don't like put it on and let it go through its entirety while I'm doing something.
I'd say it does make the car trips feel a little bit shorter since like all their albums seem to go like an hour at most. So
yep.
Actually, the funny thing with Alaska, they do the song "Breathe In, Breathe Out," which is kind of like a soft little melody. That also you get like this horror kind of scream and to kick off like Robo Turner. I want to say Robot Turner. I don't know. It's the next song after "Breathe In, Breathe Out," so it's actually kind of funny. Audience heart attack, to say the least. So,
yeah, they did their cover album. I think it was "The Anatomy of." That was awesome. Like that was one of the ones that kind of when I listened to, I'm like, who is this? And I like went on iTunes back in the day. And I was like, oh, this is tight because they did Bicycle Race, Blackened. I'm like, dude, these guys really diving on some of the older genres, and they remade it and sounded. I think it sounded good. Like I said, Pantera, Metallica. That's all where I started. So hearing those guys cover that stuff was like, wow, these guys at least won my heart in that aspect of things.
So don't forget about Geek USA from Smashing Pumpkins, Territory from Sepultura.
Oh, dude, great bands.
Well, that's what they also covered too from that album. But yeah, those were also great bands as well.
Yep.
So I do have to admit, I feel bad because when I was initially listening to Alaska, like back in high school, this is when like iTunes only had like 30-second samples that would give you like each song. Unfortunately, it wasn't my taste at the time, to say the least. So now I feel bad I got into it a little bit later than I should have. So sorry, BT Bam. So you guys are in my top 5 right now. So it's all good.
There you go.
All right. So Nick here, we briefed all the questions, and we got one more left. I guess before we jump into it, did you have any questions for me or any final words you want to say?
Just want to say I'm extremely thankful that I'm able to keep playing this music. I'm extremely grateful that you gave me an hour of your time. I'm really glad we got to connect and talk. And I hope for many more years of doing what I'm doing. I know, like I said, I just turned 31 Sunday, and I don't really want to slow down. I want to keep doing this, and hopefully the guys in the band feel the same way.
Dude, it does. What happened to your ears? I guess you take out your gauges recently.
I've had my gauges out for a couple of years. I would say at least since, yeah. So it's been before COVID. I took them out, and I had them in about 2 inches. I think back in like 2017 or 2018, and then I just never really wore them again. I just never really wanted to.
I just keep thinking of Phil Bozeman's sort of gauges that he had right there, just kind of like expanding the earlobe a little bit there too. So
yep,
that's all cool. So. But if you got nothing else here, Nick, here's how the last question goes. So, given what COVID has done, obviously it seems you've been pretty blessed. You and the band still kicking some ass and everything there too. But for those musicians and people who have been impacted by COVID or anything else in their lives, what sort of message of hope could you give to musicians and people out there as we try to move forward in the post-COVID world?
Keep enjoying music. Don't slow down. Do everything you can to get, to every show that you love. If a band's coming to your town that you love, go support them. I don't care how big or small they are. I don't care if it's a famous rapper or like a famous rock star. Just go support the things you love. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, life is really short, and when you close your eyes at night, you're not tomorrow's not guaranteed. So I would just say, just enjoy life. Try to find faith in the things that around you, and find some peace in the things around you that you love. And obviously, like we discussed mainly on this interview, music, sports, any hobbies you have. And then in this post-COVID world, just try to, if you love music, pick up a guitar, try something new. I mean, I never thought in a million years I was going to be the vocalist for a band. I've always played bass, and I was always the back in the back of the band, with the drummer just kind of grooving on bass. And to step into vocals, I was very, very nervous. I was very, scared to do something new. But I took advantage of it, and I never looked back, and I love it. So I hope the message of hope that I have for everybody is just have faith. Definitely pray and have faith in something, and do the best you can do every day, no matter what, and just keep grinding on what you love.
To quote Limp Bizkit, you gotta have faith.
Gotta have faith.
Outdoors, get the fuck up, or something like that. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But spoken like a true prodigy. Yeah, I do have to ask, do you have a little cheat sheet in front of you too? Because normally that's what some people do. It's either that or you got a teleprompter somewhere.
No, I don't actually. I wish I did. Oh, there we go. Sorry, my phone's acting up again. But no, I wish I had a cheat sheet. I wish I had something like a mural I could read off of to tell you. But no, I don't.
I'll say probably a good thing it's not teleprompter, because it seems like if it goes off for whatever reason, it's got to exit the stage. So
yeah,
that seems to be a problem with some of these old guys these days. So all right. So Nick, we've reached the end of my podcast right here. We talked for a good hour and 20 some minutes. Might be a little less, not too sure, but whenever it's done editing, it will be somewhere over an hour and 15 minutes to say the least. But got any final words? Any shout-outs you want to say before we close?
Yeah, I just want to shout out the guys in Delenda that have put up with me for years, at least a decade now. Actually, it'll be a decade, I think, at the end of the year. It's been a crazy 10 years. We played so many shows out of state. I met some awesome people, met some really cool fans that have asked me for pictures and to sign stuff. And I was like, dude, I'm just a normal dude. I got to work every day. Like, don't make it more than it is. I appreciate that you have faith in me to grow where this signature will mean something one day. But shout out to all the people that have ever seen my band live, whoever come out and moshed, sang along to any words or jumped around for any cover songs, whoever's grabbed a mic for us, whoever's wanted to put us on a show. I mean, shout out to everybody, Brian for recording me and dealing with all my crazy antics, and thank you for Jack and our drummer for putting up with my long conversations when we have these drives to these shows out of state. So just shout out everybody, my family who supported me, my friends, everybody. So
just real quick, I guess, do you guys do your own DIY instead of recording, or do you go to a studio to kind of help with the music?
Brian has his own studio. The guy that makes the guitars that I mentioned earlier, our guitar player, he has his own studio up in Southern PA, and we just use that studio that he has. It's basically so much easier than paying hourly or by song, when you can kind of go in and tweak your own sounds and like not have to worry about the producer being like, oh my God, they're still here kind of thing. So it's nice to have like a friend, a bandmate who can really help. And if you don't, I know studios I've worked with before. We worked with Chris from The Ghost Inside when he recorded Grim Divinity before COVID, and he was still really easy to work with, like not putting that down at all. One of the easiest producers, recording artists we've ever worked with, and a bigger name, I guess, in the scene. But when Brian and I started working together in his studio in PA, it was really nice to be able to go in and like record a rough draft and then go home and listen to it and then see what I can tweak on it, and then come back like a month later or like 2 weeks later and then polish off what I wrote. So it definitely helps with the creativity. He's like, oh, maybe you should try it this way. And his creative prowess and his musical abilities on top of me and Ricky kind of coming together really helped the writing process and the recording process for sure.
That's very good to hear. And support all those guys out there too, as well as the producers, record producers. support all the musicians and everything out there too. Everyone makes the magic happen in some sort of way. So,
Heavy metal stays alive. Yep.
that's for sure. And just real quick, what social media and streaming platforms you guys on, so they can check out your music and maybe reach out?
Yeah, if you want to check us out, we are on YouTube, Delenda MD. We're on Spotify, Apple Music under just Delenda. There's a few artists that carry a similar name. There's like some pop artists from Texas. So if you look Delenda up, it's our main logo, the deathcore looking font, and it's the one that's like located in Mount Airy, Maryland, and it has our bio with all of the links to our social and our link tree, etc. And then Instagram, Facebook, just Delenda MD, and you'll find it. It should be the only one for Delenda MD because we're the only Delenda in Maryland that I know of.
The real MD out of Maryland, to say the least. So I was going to say OP at first right there, but I don't think that was correct. So Delenda, the real ones out of Mount Airy, Maryland there too. So, all right. So make sure I get that right. Okay. Well, it goes out like this. So everyone, my guest today was Nick. He's out from Mount Airy, Maryland right here. He's part of the deathcore, death metal group, Delenda. So make sure you go hit him up on the socials. Go support him on all streaming platforms and everything here too. And if you see these guys in your neck of the woods, go check them out. These guys kick some major ass. And for the love of God, have the AC on. This guy needs to get some workout for that night to stay in shape. So that's all good. All right. But Nick, thank you again so much again for coming on here, mate. So you stay safe and happy birthday there, mate. Rock on.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the time.
Stay tuned, y'all.